Everyone, Jeff Sloan here, editor of CompositesWorld magazine. I'm in Washington, D.C. this week for the ACMA Composites Executive Conference. This is a high-level conference designed to look at some of the macro trends affecting the evolution of the composites industry today. The focus here this year, as you can imagine, is the incoming Trump administration and the new Congress, and how the actions of those two groups might affect the composites industry. So a quick summary of some of the speakers and what we heard today. And tomorrow is the last day of the conference, and we'll follow up tomorrow with another report on what we hear there. First speaker today was Cal Dooley. He's the president and CEO of the American Chemistry Council. He talked a lot about natural gas feedstocks in the U.S. and what a boon that's been for the chemical industry overall as a feedstock material. He also talked about, in particular, that he thinks there's going to be an infrastructure build project or infrastructure funding coming out of the new administration. But as part of that, he is hoping that there will be an open competition on materials. And of course, this is music to the ears of the folks in the room who would like to see composites considered along with legacy materials when it comes to infrastructure rebuilding projects. We also heard from Brian Dodds. He's the new CEO of ACMA. ACMA is a public-private consortium designed to help speed the development of composite materials and processes. Brian is new to the job, and he talked very specifically about his desire to get more projects into the ACMA pipeline and then help get those projects commercialized and into the market as soon as possible. We also heard from Jim Sherwood. He's an engineering professor at the University of Massachusetts at Lowell, and he talked a lot about a survey that he and his colleagues have done to try to find out what the needs of the composites industry are. In particular, he talked a lot about the need for workforce development within the composites industry, and the need for employees and students to be trained and certified in certain composite manufacturing disciplines. We also heard from Chuck Jang. He's an engineering professor at Georgia Tech University. He talked a lot about work that he is doing with professors there on joining and repair of composites, specifically for automotive and aerospace applications. On the policy side, the highlight of the day was Representative Lamar Smith. He's from Texas's 21st Congressional District. And of course, he talked almost exclusively about the incoming Trump administration and the new Congress. Of course, the new Congress is already in session and at work. He talked about some of the things that he thinks will happen there. First of all, he thinks regulations, particularly regulations affecting manufacturing, will be rolled back. He described some regulations as overly burdensome, unnecessary, or not supported by good science. In that regard, he does want any regulation that is implemented in the future to be supported by good science, and he also wants the data supporting that regulation to be made public, and he said that is not always the case today. He does think the tax code will be rewritten, it will be simplified, it will be more business friendly, and he thinks there will be something to encourage companies to stay in the United States. On the healthcare side, Representative Smith said that replacement of Obamacare will take about a year to implement. He thinks it will feature more private insurers, interstate competition. He said the current Obamacare stipulation regarding pre-existing conditions will stay in place. He said there will be no mandates and that there will be greater choice for consumers and employers. But it sounds like a lot remains to be worked out in that regard. We also heard from Lauren Bazell. She's vice president with the Alpine Group. The Alpine Group is a bipartisan consulting firm here in Washington, D.C. She talked a little bit about policy as well in the incoming administration, but she's talked more specifically about the need for the composites industry as a whole and composites fabricators in particular to do a better job of making their case to their representatives in Congress. She feels like composites are not well understood by lawmakers and that there needs to be better communication to senators and representatives about what composites are, what they mean, what the advantages are, how many people are employed in the composites industry, so that lawmakers can appreciate and understand what composites are and make decisions that might more favorably help the composites industry. Finally, we heard from Robert Fry. He's an economist. He talked about some of the macro trends within the broader global and national economy. He talked a lot about the price of oil. He noted, as has been reported in some of the popular press, that he thinks that we might reach peak demand for oil before we reach peak supply, and that fracking and other technologies that have been developed have allowed more oil to be accessed than originally anticipated. Robert Fry is also a big advocate of free trade, and he expressed some concern that the incoming Trump administration, at least the rhetoric regarding restricting trade or changing trade agreements, could be detrimental to the United States. We'll see how that plays out. And last but not least, we heard from Jeffrey Gilman. He's a scientist with the National Institutes for Science and Technology, or called NIST. And he talked a lot about research being done by NIST using composite materials and processes, and how that work can be accessed by the composites industry. And he encouraged the industry to reach out to NIST and to use the resources which he said are underutilized right now. So that was it for day one at the ACMA Composites Executive Conference. Tomorrow's day two, and we'll be back with another report of what we learned tomorrow. So until then, I'm Jeff Sloan. I'm the editor of Composites World, and thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.